This conference will now be recorded.
Still don't know.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda is consider approval of consent agenda items.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Olot.
Yes.
Item number 2 is requests or comments from the public. Anyone who wishes to speak, as you start, please give your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. Just a reminder that council cannot respond during your public comment time. If you do ask questions, they might include any responses at their comments at the very end, though. You'll have 3 minutes. I will give you a 30-second warning as you near the end of your time so that you know to wrap it up.
I'm a little taller than Zach. Good evening. My name is David Strite, and I live at 1396 South 104th Street. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the UPOC verbiage that was being discussed last meeting, and I think will be discussed further today. I have 3 kids, one in Edwardsville Elementary, one in middle school, Clark, and one at Bonner High School. So I'm spread pretty thin, and I'm actually here between volleyball practice and then a church function I got to get to. So I wanted to speak my piece and then run. So one of the questions that came up in the last meeting, and I don't think it was meant seriously, but I think it was a question that was asked and it kind of stuck in my mind, was when they were talking about the presentation of obscene materials and stuff to children, and somebody asked, isn't that the school's job or the school's kind of jurisdiction to police some of that stuff? And the thought that popped into my head was, it's actually all of our jobs. We can't rely on somebody else to look out for the safety of our children. So I just wanted to stress that if we have an opportunity to tighten restrictions or things like that, to make it a little more difficult or whatnot, then we should jump at that opportunity. I know, and I'm not being judgmental, but just looking at the council, I can guess that a lot of you don't have school-age children. It's interesting because if you ever get the opportunity, ask a high schooler or ask a middle school kid, what is a furry? And I know many of you may not even know what that is, but a furry is actually, they'll tell you that a furry is somebody that identifies as a cat or a dog or some other animal. And they're allowed to crawl around on the floor and wear leashes and collars and hiss and purr and meow and bark and just nonsense. And it's incredibly disruptive to the classroom. The school won't do anything about it. So the school's already failing us. And even to something as obvious as a school fight, you may think, well, surely the school would step in and protect our children in that situation. But go to the NEA website, and you'll learn that a teacher, they're obligated. The only thing they're obligated to do by law is to ask the children to stop beating each other, and they can't intervene. They're not supposed to physically intervene in a fight. Now, the school resource officer, sure, when he shows up, when seconds matter, the police are there in minutes, right? But the teacher cannot intervene by law. They get punished for that. So we can't rely on the school to take care of that. So what I would ask is, as you guys look at this, and I have confidence that we'll arrive at the right conclusion. I don't think anybody here wants harm done to children, right? I think we can all use our minds and the talents that are given us. Am I up? No. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Melissa Tanis. I'm at 216 Blake Street here in Edwardsville, Kansas. I have several school-age children. This one here is a first grader at Edwardsville Elementary. Her name is Eleanor Judith Tanis. Thank you. So I listened again to the meeting from last month, and I want to encourage you to protect our children. There are certain things that as parents don't have control over, but you do. And I understand that there's concerns. Last month was brought up about expenses possibly that could occur, but I think that she deserves to be protected regardless. And I know you guys can rewrite any verbiage you need to and modify it to make it to where I don't have to worry about someone having an excuse for exposing her to something inappropriate. And I appreciate you taking your time today to do that. Thank you.
My name is Camila Adcox. I live at 1520 South 104th Terrace. I just wanted to remind you all that you all have the authority to change this. You have the right to do it, even if it is changing the verbiage, like Melissa said. I want to start with the definition of obscene. It means the portrayal or description of sexual matters, offensive or disgusting, repulsive. I'm worried about what our children could possibly see or have access to and effects with this. I've heard some say, if you don't like it, send your kids to private school, but that's not possible for some, especially with the rising taxes here. Honestly, the things that worry me most is when kids are exposed to things like this, what happens to their brains and what's going on with them emotionally and mentally when they get exposed to even just a little bit of pornography or obscene material. Girls particularly, they start to have doubts and worries about how they look. They start to suffer from depression and isolation. Boys particularly, they actually, it's a lot scarier for boys. For males, adolescents, they view when they view obscene or pornographic images more frequently, and they're more likely to view women as sex objects. So it raises violence against women. Also, let's not forget that this is an open door for grooming. This caused even young children to experiment with sexuality, explicit behavior to make sense of it, leads a child to normalize and become desensitized to high-risk behavior, blurs boundaries and increases a child's risk of victimization, increases a child's risk of problematic sexual behavior against other children in an effort to experiment. The list goes on. But I cannot find one good thing about this. I can find a million bad things. And I ask that you guys think of our children as you make this decision. And like Mr. Strite said, I don't think that any of you have school-age children. You may have children in Edwardsville and Bonner Springs, grandchildren. And I ask that you think of the children that are here and the parents that are here, because you do have the authority and power to take care of this. Thank you.
My name is Mike Vernon, and pastor of Edwardsville Christian Church for 17 years, and live in Tonganoxie, Kansas, 102 East 11th Street Terrace, so not a resident here. But having served in this community and known a lot of the folks here, first, just want to say thank you for this opportunity to come and share with you thoughts and concerns. You know, I come as the pastor of ECC in the capacity of a spiritual leader. I know that you, as the leadership group of this community, understand the weight of the responsibility you have to the people, the families, the children of Edwardsville. Sometimes that weight really weighs on you heavily, as I think it is at this time. You have before you a document that has been prepared by many different individuals. They have a responsibility that they take seriously but they may not know this community. They may have to, at times, compromise their beliefs, their stand, in order to get things accomplished. That is the unknown. Edwardsville is a community that depends upon all parties working for the good of this community. You, as leaders who make decisions for the community, city government, the city departments, family, the school teachers, citizens of this community. You know this community. You live here. You know what is best for Edwardsville. This is part of what makes American democracy work. There are certain responsibilities and decisions that are statewide that you have no say in. But these that you're dealing with tonight are basically suggestions from the state. You choose how to proceed in carrying out the decisions that you know are best for Edwardsville. There are many, many people who pray that you will have the wisdom and discernment to implement what is best for Edwardsville. You are the local decision makers, and you establish that which is best for the people, the children, the community of Edwardsville. Thank you for that time.
John, all the vote 10601 Shawnee, right here in Edwardsville. I'm also here to support Mayor Cahar's suggestion that we dump sections of this. I am a court-appointed special advocate for children who have been abused sexually, psychologically, physically, and the damage that this does to them. I've seen they'll be in therapy for years. This is not about censorship. It's not about shutting down. All of you can run home tonight and watch all the porn you want on the internet. But it's a different thing to do this to children, to sexualize children at an age that's inappropriate for that. I saw a meme that I thought was awfully cute. It said, young boys like this, the only thing that they should know about young girls is that they have cooties. And that's about the reality of where they're at psychologically. And so to impose on them pornographic materials is very harmful for them psychologically. Now, the other thing that hits me, and to answer some of the questions that I heard from the first meeting, one is that there is never an excuse to show children pornographic materials. The police don't have to do it. When they do their forensic interviews, they don't show them pornographic materials. They show them a little outline of a little boy or a little girl, and they ask them where the bad parts are and what they call them and things of that nature. Secondly, we've just had an incident in North Kansas City where a fellow sexually assaulted, a teacher sexually assaulted an 8-year-old girl and also showed her pornographic pictures. Now, the thing that's interesting about that is that it's very difficult to convict these pedophiles for the actual molesting of these children because the children are not good witnesses in court. And so the vast majority of pedophiles who molest children get away with it. The one thing they have up there that they can't get away with is that he showed them these pictures. If you allow this to go through where a teacher is allowed to do that, you'll have let this guy go loose because that's all they have. That's all they will have probably when they actually get to court. The other thing, Councilman Adams brought up the fact that we might get sued. I doubt it because simply, I don't think these people want publicity. I don't think they want all of the communities in the state of Kansas to know that this is in here. They're hoping that this slides through and nobody notices. So anyway, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Two large boats meeting at the entryway. Well, my name is Ryan Parker. I live at 1040 Edwardsville Drive here in town. If I say nothing else tonight, I want to say protect our children. I stand in unity with the statements made by Mayor Cahar last meeting as I've listened to them on YouTube. I recently on social media made a statement regarding my 5th grade experience that by 5th grade I'd already been exposed to writing a check balancing a checkbook, being an employer, being an employee, being a consumer, and what that looked like as fifth grader, right? Someone commented, a teacher friend said, don't turn these kids into small adults, let them be kids. I was talking about teaching them how to balance a checkbook, something useful in life. And I thought, how much more important would that statement be at a comment like this, where we're talking about sexualizing children and making it illegal, an okay thing to do in our school systems. I would like to tell you all the hats that I wear in our community, but my employer actually forbids me from doing that, because I would like to correct a misnomer stated last week about how police would approach a child from sexual abuse from my own personal experience, knowledge, and training. But again, I can't do that. Children need not be presented with sexual information and obscene materials. Nudity and sexual acts have no place in our public schoolings. This was and has always been a parental issue, and that's where it should remain. What this ordinance proposes, it would make that not a crime in the law's eyes in the school setting. Across many places in the United States, we see parents standing up to the readings in children's materials and school boards, where the board and the committee members are blushing and saying, you can't do that here, don't read that here. And they're saying, but this is the book you want my child to read. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, I hold strongly, are the things that should be taught in school. Anything else is something left for the parents' responsibility. And I can find many teachers who would agree with me that we've asked teachers to do too much. Essentially, the way I read this, a person out there presenting pornographic materials, obscene materials to a child would be a criminal in the law's eyes, but a school teacher or representative doing it would get a pass. I would ask you to help me make sense of that, but I don't believe you can. We know that in all factions of life we have bad actors. Schools are not exclusively removed from this, and as we saw in a local school here recently, we saw a principal who was doing these kind of activities with children on his own time. I've heard concern about being sued. You know, some fights just need to be fought. I can think of my friend, retired Captain Webb, whose father was a catalyst in the Brown versus Board of Education in Kansas. I'm sure there were many cities that thought, well, we would never include that child because we don't want to be sued. Some fights need to be fought. As a father, a pastor, a community member of Edwardsville, friend, a general human being, this is an open avenue for danger in our community. And the fact we're discussing it, I find imaginable. I want to conclude with the American College of Pediatricians, who said the availability and use of pornography has become almost ubiquitous among adults and adolescents. Consumption of pornography is associated with many negative emotional, psychological, and physical health outcomes. These include increased rates of depression, anxiety, acting out, and violent behavior, younger age of sexual debut, sexual promiscuity, increased risk of teen pregnancy, and a distorted view of relationships between men and women. For adults, pornography results in an increased likelihood of divorce, which is also harmful to children. The American College of Pediatricians urges healthcare professionals to communicate the risks of pornography use to patients and their families, and to offer resources both to protect children from viewing pornography and to treat individuals suffering from its negative effects. Protect our children.
My name is Sandy Bonfield, and I live at 507 South 110th Street in Edwardsville. I am coming from a different standpoint as far as where I feel my job is. And I'm a preschool teacher in Bonner at Head Start. And there are times when kids come to us as a protective moment that have struggled with exactly the same thing in their lives. And to think that my little people, who I am sending out into the world, are going to have to possibly go through this type of material and just refresh it in their memories kind of breaks my heart and makes me very, very sad. I have been an educator for over 30 years in Christian education in public school education and now in Head Start preschool. And I have 3 boys that attend Bonner. Well, a middle schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and 1 child in Edwardsville. And all I want to tell you is what many of you all said, well said, just protect our children. As a teacher, please protect our children. They're the most important thing that we've been given. And that's what we're counting on for you to do in our district or in our city.
Good evening. I'm James Everhart, and I represent me and my wife, Christy. We live at 10512 Shelton Avenue. I think that this is a very important thing to protect our children. And by doing so, we'll be protecting our future because the children are our future. We have 3 children. One is a student at KU. He started at Edwardsville Elementary and he made his way through Bonner Springs, and he is now studying as an aerospace engineer in KU. It brings me to tears to think that he may have faced such a thing when he was in his school years in here, because I don't think he'd be where he was at today. I believe that it's totally inappropriate in any way, somehow, that if my 8 and 9-year-old would have to experience this, because to them, shut up and stupid is a cuss word. I can't imagine that they would have to come up against anything that would be such explicit, because unknowingly to some people, but I see it a lot throughout the nation, that the school board meetings that people are going to, and the other people have brought that up too, of the things that they have to face, that they get kicked out of the meetings because the stuff that is presented to their children via books or assignments or what have you, that is so inappropriate that they can't even, it's so disgusting that they can't even read it out loud. And I would just pray that this would never be an acceptable or even able to get into our school districts, period. You know, and as a parent or as a grandparent too, I'm a grandparent also, and I'm assuming that many are, that I can't imagine that the damage that would happen to them if this was happening. You know, this is grooming, it's sexualizing, and it's unacceptable. And I think it's a 100% no-brainer that steps be taken to potentially put an arrest to anything of this nature ever happening to any of our children in this city or in our school district. And it's happening throughout our nation. And I just hope that steps be taken to protect them. Thank you.
My name's Kenny Shaw, and I live at 602 Newton, Edwardsville. First off, Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for taking this question up. It's kind of interesting to see a little town called Edwardsville in the great state of Kansas doing something positive towards making somebody responsible for something that hasn't happened yet. And I think that's awesome, rather than to turn around and say, well, they're responsible, or they're responsible, or they're responsible. And like somebody has already said, it will help save the teachers, because I believe if a teacher has to start putting this propaganda out that they're putting out, then what does that make them? To me, that takes them down a ladder, takes them down the rabbit hole, and they won't be able to get out of it. So again, I just want to thank you for taking this situation up and seeing what goes on. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, there being none, we'll move on to item number 3. Consider ordinance number 1059 adopting the 2022 Unified Public Offense Code for Kansas cities.
Make sure I have this on for you. I'm going to go step back just a little bit here. First of all, as you know, the Unified Public Offense Code is a group of basically takes our state statutes and codifies them into what's known as the Unified Public Offense Code. That has been occurring since 1980 by the League of Kansas Municipalities. We currently operate under the 37th edition of the Unified Public Offense Code. Tonight, we are considering the 38th version of the Unified Public Offense Code. The ordinance that is in the packet is the one that has been presented to you previously. Certainly, it can be amended if the council so chooses. But it is the ordinance that we have previously adopted in a number of years in the past. The current amendments in that code basically deal with section 10.5 on the unlawful discharge of a firearm, section 10.6 related to air guns and bow and arrows and other devices such as that, and the last and then section 10.13 regarding barbed wire. And then we have one deletion of a section, which is 10.29, the violation of a public health order. So those have been our traditional amendments to this. Just to summarize here, during the last meeting, we had presented the UPOC. It had been before you a couple of times before. There was questions raised or suggested amendments raised by the mayor relating to the section specifically that relate to defense to prosecutions that are found in both state statute, which is then into the Uniform Public Offense Code. That information was passed out. I think the council elected to take some time to review that because they had not had a chance to review that. From a staff standpoint, we've looked at that as well and provided some options. Obviously you have take your actions as a governing body and move forward. I do think it's important to say this because it is important. The Public Offense Code and what we're talking about, these particular sections in 11, do not allow a person to illegally show obscenity. I know there was a reference to a person that as a teacher was doing it out, they weren't doing it as part of a classroom. They weren't doing it. Being a teacher in and of itself, I guess I just want to say, being a teacher does not prevent you from being charged and convicted of this kind of activity. And I would reiterate what others said. I don't think there's anybody in this room or most rooms that are in support of doing something that would create harm to children. So I know there's a lot of discussions around this, but I do want to be clear that, from the city, from administration, if somebody comes forth, makes a claim of a criminal activity, we would investigate that criminal activity. If there's a crime committed, we're going to pursue it through the prosecutions, whether it's through our court, which is what the UPOC relates to, or if it's a felony or some other charge, it would go through the district attorney's office. So we're happy to answer questions. Again, I know there's a lot of discussion around this, but I think what the direction to staff was, one, to give council time to review it. We're happy to answer questions. And two, we've proposed at least two possible changes that you may wish to relate to in section 11.1. Again, just read that. So in 11.1D, it would strike out the words "and promoting obscenity to minors." Again, it's related to the defenses to prosecution. So there's nothing saying we would promote or allow. It's still a crime. And then in 11.2 C, to consider the word affirmative defense instead of just a defense to prosecution. And again, we tried to provide some context as to what those two words mean. Certainly our city attorney is is the lawyer here, so I don't want to try to define law, but we did certainly discuss, generally is that what the definitions between a defense to prosecution and an affirmative defense to prosecution. Again, happy to answer questions, and we'll go from there.
So after the last meeting, I did get a lot of questions about what in the world is UPOC? What's going on? What is this? And so I wrote some thoughts down and definitions and things just to clarify for the council's pretty familiar at this point, but the public in general, and just what in the world are we talking about here? So the standard traffic ordinances, which is STO, and the Uniform Public Offense Code, UPOC, for Kansas cities have been published by the League of Municipalities since 1980. Each is designed to provide a comprehensive public offense ordinance for Kansas cities. They do not take effect until a city or governing body has passed and published separate ordinances incorporating them by reference. These incorporating ordinances may add, delete, modify, or change articles, sections, parts, or portions thereof, which the governing body feels are necessary for the city. In summary for that, the UPOC is a large packet of ordinances distributed to most cities in Kansas by an unelected group with the idea that the municipal code or city laws are consistent from city to city. Because of home rule, we as a governing body can elect to adopt these ordinances as a whole, amend as needed, or not adopt any of them at all. Home rule in Kansas City, because I've had that question. Okay, what's home rule? Home rule in Kansas allows cities to be more restrictive than the state and local ordinances. This allows us to bring charges against someone who the state statute would not. As a city, we already amend the UPOC to better serve the residents of Edwardsville in sections 10.5, unlawful discharge of a firearm, section 10.6, air gun, air rifle, bow and arrow, slingshot, BB gun, or paintball gun, section 10.13, barbed wire, and in the deletion of section 1029, the violation of a public health order. So this is something that can be amended, can be changed. It's not necessarily needed to be passed every year in its entirety. I have asked many professionals, including lawyers, legislators, the reviser of statutes in Topeka, about this particular issue, all of which confirmed that we absolutely can charge people with our own ordinances at the municipal level, and that does not change what they can be charged with at a state statute level. According to the reviser of statutes in Topeka, it is our constitutional right of home rule, along with statutes KSA 12-3009 and 12-3010, give us this authority as a governing body in this city. And speaking with another attorney, they confirmed that this code goes well beyond the Miller test. Speaking of Code 11, the sections dealing with obscenities to minors and harmful materials. And the state statute is much more specific than is needed. Also, they concluded that we are well within our authority to make any ordinance in the UPOC, including those in Section 11, more restricted than the state statute, and personally felt the children of Edwardsville deserve better and should have more protection than set out in Section 11. So far in our summary, in our nutshell, we have established that the UPOC is a suggestion to the governing body, that the governing body is empowered by home rule, KSA 12-3009 and 12-3010, to adopt, reject entirely, or amend the UPOC as we see fit, and as we already do on an annual basis. Now we'll dive into Section 11 of the UPOC, because that is overwhelming to some folks. Section 11 of the UPOC primarily addresses promoting obscenity and harmful material to minors, so to children in our city. It is important to know what is considered obscene or harmful so we know exactly what is being addressed. These are defined within each section so we know exactly what is considered obscene or harmful when it comes to minors. This I've just copied right out of the UPOC. As used in this section, any material or performance is obscene if the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. What does prurient mean? I didn't know, so I looked it up. It means marked or arousing an intermoderate or wholesome interest or desire, especially marked by arousing or appealing to sexual desire. So it doesn't mean what it sounds like. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the average person applying contemporary community standards. So does this apply to a textbook? No. The average person would not consider a biology book or a normal health class obscene. Next, the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance has patently offensive representations or descriptions of ultimate sexual acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, including sexual intercourse or sodomy, masturbation, excretory functions, sadomasochistic abuse, or lewd exhibition of the genitals. Why this would be in school? I don't know. We'll move on. Taken as a whole, a reasonable person would find that the material or performance lacks serious literary, educational, artistic, political, or scientific value. Once again, if the person's taken to court as any other person, a neighbor or soccer coach would be, the judge could say, you know what, this has valid educational value, so we're not going to find this person or find them guilty because they're already given this. So already that's covered. Material, any tangible thing that is capable of being used or adapted to arouse interest, whether throughout the medium of reading, observation, sound, or other matter. An obscene device. I'm not even going to read all of this because it's disgusting, but it's basically sex toys that have no place in schools. So we don't need to bring that into this, but you can read that at your own leisure. Harmful to minors, sorry. So now we're talking about specific material that's defined herein. It's not so subjective. It's not, oh, this might be my opinion, this is harmful. This is in black and white in the law, so there's boundaries. Harmful to minors means that the quality of any description, exhibition, presentation, or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse, when the material or performance taken as a whole or with respect to a prosecution for an act described by subsection A1, that the portion of the material that was actually exposed to the view of minors has the following characteristics. So again, this is just pertaining to children. The average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance has a predominant tendency to appeal to a prurient interest, there's that word again, in sex to minors. The average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance depicts or describes nudity, sexual context, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse in a manner that is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect with what is suitable for minors. And a reasonable person would find that the material or performance lacks any serious literary, scientific, educational, artistic, or political value for minors. Once again, this definition is in here. So when we're talking about the exceptions made, that means this is a person in school, and just like Mike said, this isn't a teacher outside of the classroom. This is talking about a teacher inside of the classroom that has gone beyond what the average person would say is okay. And so this is an extremist. This is the average person says, no, this is obscene. Within sections 11.1 and 11.2 is a defense to prosecution. This means it gives a legal reason that a person cannot be charged with a criminal offense. And section 11.7 gives an affirmative defense to prosecution, which is a defense to a criminal charge where a fact or set of facts other than those alleged by the plaintiff or the prosecutor, which if proven by the defendant, defeats or mitigates the legal consequences of the defendant's otherwise unlawful conduct. So that means in the first one, they can't even be charged. The second one, they can be charged, but they have to prove these sections that they're within this certain criteria in front of a judge, and then the judge will go from there. So at least in that one, they can be seen in court. The defense to prosecution is only made for teachers, employees of a school, librarians, or government employees. These are adults who are some of the most trusted in our children's lives. They should be held accountable for what they are subjecting children to, the same as anyone else. If my child's teacher shows them obscene material, they should be held to the same standard as a neighbor or a coach. At our last meeting, the concern was raised that this would interfere with a police officer's job or a healthcare worker in dealing with a victim that is a child. I have asked teachers, law enforcement officers, and healthcare workers in the last 2 weeks, all responding they would never have the need to show obscene or harmful materials to minors in their line of work. I have a statement from a local healthcare worker who has assisted children in dealing with trauma. Here's her statement. As a board-certified pediatrician who provides care for children in this school district, I cannot think of any real or hypothetical scenario in which I would ever consider intentionally exposing a minor to obscene materials. In fact, I would consider any attempt to do so to be a grooming type behavior. I've cared for children who have had varying degrees of complicated sequelae following intentional or unintentional exposure to obscene, usually sexual content. Under no circumstance should children be shown this type of pornographic material, especially not by an adult who children and their parents are supposed to be able to trust. Teachers, librarians, and public officials are trusted professionals with close contact to children. If anything, they should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. And that was her statement. We were asked for specific scenarios in last meeting. Here, how it stands now, if a teacher brings a sex toy into a 5th grade classroom as part of their health or sex ed curriculum to educate the students on how to use it properly, or gives a reading assignment where it graphically depicts a child being sodomized by their neighbor. As it stands now, there are currently no charges that will be filed in our municipal court. Our children deserve better. The truth is, we can be sued for anything. The question here is not, can we be sued, but which side will we be on? Will we be sued for protecting children, holding adults accountable for promoting obscene and harmful materials to the most vulnerable in our community? Or might we be sued for protecting adults who are sexualizing our children? One begs the question, what is the motivation here? Why in the world would there be exceptions made for anyone who would show ultimate sex acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, including sexual intercourse or sodomy, masturbation, excretory functions, sadomasochistic abuse, or lewd exhibition of genitals to children? Why would we allow this to be on the books in our city? No, we are not lawyers, but we are the legislative body for this city. The school board cannot make ordinances. This is up to us. I'm not asking to find people guilty. I'm just asking that they're held to the same accountability as everyone else. I'm asking that you hold everyone to the same standard and allow no exceptions when it comes to protecting our children. Given all of this information, we basically have 3 options in front of us. Option 1 would be adopting ordinance number 1059, adopting the 2022 Unified Public Offense Code for Kansas Cities, giving no defense for children in Edwardsville in the event they are harmed by a trusted adult, showing them obscene or harmful materials as long as it's in their curriculum. Number 2, second option, is adopting ordinance 1059, adoption of the Unified Public Offense Code for Kansas Cities, exchanging any verbiage found in section 11 from a defense to prosecution to an affirmative defense to prosecution. And if you'll remember the definitions before, this one was outlined for us in the staff memo. Mike, and you can agree or not, but we've already confirmed with the prosecuting attorney that this would be acceptable. This at least brings people to court, so it gives a minimum standard for protecting our kids. Or adopting ordinance 1059, adopting the Unified Public Offense Code for Kansas Cities, striking the verbiage from section 11.1D, 11.2C, and 11.7B and D. And this holds everyone to the same legal standard, eliminating exemptions for any person who exposes a minor to harmful and obscene material that exceeds reasonable standards as described therein.
I make a motion to accept option 3. don't know the.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, just for our purposes. So at the last meeting, the mayor had submitted the strike-through language. Is that, I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, that would be, and confirm if I'm wrong, Margaret, but what I presented at the last one was just striking verbiage specifically in only 11.1D, 11.2C, and 11.7B and D.
Correct.
Is that the one that's in front of us right now I'm looking at?
I'm sorry. Is that what I?
So
that is option 2. That's where it changes. That is where it changes the defense to prosecution to affirmative defense to prosecution. Is this one. Margaret is suggesting we get rid of those sections and put everyone on the same standard. So it's not if they're a teacher or a librarian, they won't be.
So those would have been the amendments that the mayor brought up at the last meeting is what the motion has been set forth as.
Removing all that you had underlined at the last meeting, is that correct?
That's
Correct. I believe that's correct. Carolyn?
Yeah,
Number
that's
3.
So let me just, and I think I know, so correct me if I'm wrong here. I looked at too many versions of this. So we're talking, get to, so in section 11.1, it would strike through item D in its entirety.
Correct.
In 11.2, it would strike through C in its entirety.
Correct.
And in 11.7, it would strike through, make sure I've got these right. Strike through
B and D.
B in its entirety and
Yep.
D in its entirety.
Correct. And what that does, it just, people can still, anyone would be charged the same way. So it's not like you're automatically guilty for anything. But in this scenario, even if it's in someone's, if they're a teacher, then they would be held to the same standard as the guy next door.
For me, I'm still confused. I mean, I want to do everything we can to protect our kids, and I can't agree more with what's been said out there, 110%. I really appreciate what the mayor is talking about, but I'm really confused. Your option 1, 2, and 3, I don't see any of that in this paperwork, that's spelled out. I just want to make sure, again, I want to do everything we can to protect them to the utmost power of the law and protect our children. I just don't see the options that you laid out, 1, 2, and 3 in front of me.
So I can help you with that just a little bit. I'll
Just
give
to
you my
make
page.
sure.
Here's the verbiage to look over, but while you're looking over it, I can explain it a little bit further. So the staff memo, I should say recommendation because they didn't specifically recommend it, but changes the verbiage from, I don't want to say the wrong word, changes the verbiage from a defense to prosecution to an affirmative defense to prosecution. That's option 2. And so what that means is there's still an extra layer of defense, and like in a nutshell, there's still an extra layer of defense surrounding anyone that works for a school, a library, or a government employee if they show obscene or harmful materials to minors. But it does at least give them the opportunity to be charged. In option 3, what I'm asking is eliminating the verbiage that says it shall be a defense to prosecution for promoting obscenity and promoting obscenity to minors, that the person to whom the allegedly obscene material or obscene device, so it's like the like pornographic material or sex toys, was disseminated, or an audience to an allegedly obscene performance consisted of persons or institutions having a scientific, educational, or governmental justification for possessing or viewing the same. 2, defendant is an officer, director, trustee, or employee of a public library, and the allegedly obscene material was acquired by such library and was disseminated in accordance with the regular library policies approved by its governing body, or allegedly obscene material or obscene device was purchased, leased, and again, that's the obscene, like pornographic or obscene material or sex toy, was purchased, leased, or otherwise acquired by a public, private, or parochial school, college, or university, and that such material or device was either sold, leased, distributed, or disseminated by a teacher, instructor, professor, other faculty member, or administrator of such school as part or incident to an approved course or program instruction at such school. And so I'm just asking that we remove that saying it's educational. Basically, I'm taking that out and saying it needs to be the same across the board. If that's the third option.
And Lisa, you agree with that statement with her option 3? Does it hold our, our teachers and citizens in Edwardsville more accountable for this kind of act or behavior?
I don't think there's an easy answer for that.
Mike, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Talking to you over here. I don't think there's an easy answer for that because we're talking about in Edwardsville at a grade school level, something that could be part of the curriculum that would rise to the level that would people would think it was obscene. I think most of what I heard in the public comments fall outside of that and would be dealt with by felony charges, most likely. So what it does is put grade school teachers in Edwardsville possibly at a different standard in curriculum than the rest of the school district. School teachers who are required to follow a curriculum, again, we're talking at a grade school level, I suppose have to make a choice about whether to teach their curriculum or face someone thinking that it's obscene and a violation of the law. So you create a pool of plaintiffs that you did not have before. Absolutely, this council is not doing anything illegal if they make any of the changes that have been recommended here today. No argument there at all. The league advises there be no changes, especially when you're dealing with a UPOC section that is directly linked to a statute. Keep in mind, this is one large statute that they have broken up into 3 parts, so it's a little bit more manageable at the municipal level to be able to handle it. So it's citing the same statute. It's my understanding that the city prosecutor's first preference was no changes, but could live with it if it needed to be an affirmative defense. I can go in a little bit more about the differences between those two. I don't know that they necessarily matter. It requires a teacher possibly to face going to court. So,
does it give, in your opinion, our teachers the right to say no? If somebody, says, I want you to teach this to the students, does that give the teacher?
That's a matter between them and a school district. This does not give them a right to say no in their job to the curriculum that I can see. I mean, this doesn't give them any rights to be able to do that. And it affects the school district in how their curriculum is affected. Again, we're talking at a grade school level. I think most of the examples that I heard would be certainly falling outside of anything in a grade school. There is no protection for any teacher that wants to promote child pornography or any sort of obscene material that is done with a prurient interest. The defense, the prosecution has to do with your intent. If I'm teaching it as my curriculum, my intent is not prurient. If I am doing something outside of that, if it's not part of my curriculum, if I'm just a teacher, but I'm showing something that isn't even involved in school, there's no protection because you're a teacher. Absolutely not.
And I would go on to say that it actually gives the teachers a little bit of the ability to follow their conscience. And I think that's more along the lines you were saying. And they could say, as a fifth grade teacher, when the health and the sex ed really starts coming into talk, if they get something, because like right now, it's not even our school district, it's Wyandotte County Health Department that pushes information into Edwardsville Elementary. And so it would give teachers a place to say, you know what, I can be held personally responsible, and so I don't feel comfortable. Because as it is right now, the district can say, this isn't our curriculum and you are teaching it. You're covered by the city, because that's what we're doing right now. And so yes, I think to your argument, if I were a teacher at Edwardsville Elementary, a fourth grade, fifth grade teacher, and they're trying to get me to teach things I'm not comfortable with, I could say, you know what, I can be charged with this, so I don't feel comfortable.
This really puts the teacher in a very awkward spot with their employer, because what we're talking about is really the curriculums are set by the school boards, and the school boards direct the superintendent. The superintendent is responsible for the school district. I hate all this crap. It shouldn't be in our society, and anybody who does it is despicable. They should be run out of town. It's disgusting. But we are exposing the teachers here. If a teacher, it allows the public to say anything is obscene.
No, it doesn't.
And
I just want to just really
listen,
quick.
hear me out.
Okay.
It allows the public to decide what's going to be obscene and not. One person can raise something, and it creates a situation with their employer.
That's fair. These are parents. A parent should be able to say, you showed my child obscene material.
This is something that was passed by the House and the legislature that would have given give parents the right to observe, to critique any literature, any curriculums in school. Governor Kelly vetoed it. These are where the battles are to be fought. We're looking at a situation, we may actually be making it easier for criminals because of our lack of ability to prosecute.
So just to clarify, it doesn't leave it open to anyone's opinion. It would be brought to a judge if we remove the verbiage. And already it's defined in here that, and I read it, so y'all know what is considered obscene and what is considered harmful. This isn't for extremists to come and make a big deal about a biology book, because an average adult person applying contemporary community standards would not think that was obscene. Those are already covered in here. It says, taken as a whole, a reasonable person would find the material or performance lack serious literary, educational, artistic, political, or scientific value. I'm just asking whether the curriculum in itself, I'm saying, I don't care if it is curriculum. I want the teacher to be able to say, hey, I could get charged for this and I don't feel comfortable teaching it. It violates my conscience. I want to give them that ability. I also want to give the parents the ability to hold the school district accountable. And right now, it doesn't allow it. It flat out doesn't allow it. And you're right that this is where we fight it.
How does it not allow it? I don't understand how it doesn't allow it.
Because right as it is right now, it gives them the, let me find the words so I don't tell you the right thing, tell you the wrong thing. As it is right now, it gives them the defense to prosecution. And so what that means right now is if a school teacher at Edwardsville Elementary, because we are talking about elementary school aged kids, if a school teacher presents them something that's obscene as defined in this section. So a normal person would say it's obscene, and it goes into it's sodomy, for instance. Teacher gives a lesson on sodomy. It's in their health curriculum. I know you're shaking your head, but watch the news. It's out there. It's out there. And so this says they cannot be charged because they have a defense to prosecution. We had that defined for us. The police officer could look it up and say, I'm sorry, they have the defense to prosecution, so they're not even going to court over it. I'm asking that the parents have the ability to at least be heard. That's all.
And the place to be heard is where the policy is made.
And that's here. And
The
it's
policy is made at the school district.
No, they can't pass ordinances. The school, okay, please
So
feedback from the crowd, but
does this strengthen the ability to prosecute somebody who gives pornographic material to kids, or does it weaken it, or does it not change it at all?
It widens the pool to people who may or may not be subject to this. It widens the pool.
so it allows teachers where otherwise they would not be.
Well, not in those fact-specific situation.
It allows teachers in their curriculum. Yes.
It makes the teacher make the determination that this is obscene in violation of the code, and that they are not going to teach it for that reason, or they are going to teach it because it's part of the curriculum and they don't consider it to be obscene. So at the municipal level, this captures a lot more people to possibly be subject to prosecution.
So currently it allows that pool is smaller. And the reason the pool is smaller is because right now teachers, the school employees, librarians, and government employees are not included in that pool. They're not included in that pool. And so all this does is puts everyone in the same pool and says, if you show a child in Edwardsville obscene material, you're held to the same standard as any other adults in the community.
What is a Miller test?
A Miller test, well, Lisa, you can explain the Miller test if you'd like.
I want to hear what your version
Okay. So a Miller test is what an attorney told her advice to me was that it had to be this, I don't want to go beyond my knowledge. I was quoting an attorney. But it needs to be a smaller standard. We're looking at state statutes, and when they're giving a whole group and a way out or a loophole, that an exemption, then it's not fit to its narrowest standard. And so that would, I mean, if you want to pick here, I think it's kind of obvious if we're getting picky with it. Because I feel like that's what we're doing. Ultimately,
Well, you brought it up as defense. I just want to know what the definition is.
Well, if Lisa's not comfortable giving the definition, I asked you.
Because I've never heard the Miller test used as part of this statute. There's really very little case law on it when I looked it up, because there's been very little challenges when specifically, if we're going to look at this situation, when it's been a misdemeanor in the municipal court and been a challenge to that. Typically, this type of charge is a charge that comes as part and parcel of someone who's been charged with child pornography, child endangerment, sexual assault, something like that. And this has been part of that, and so it's a misdemeanor that the state will bring. The only challenge I've seen to it was the definition of material.
And I did look it up for you just to help you out. The Miller test, also called the three-prong obscenity test, is the United States Supreme Court's test for determining whether speech or expression can be labeled obscene, in which case it's not protected by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution and can be prohibited. And it should be when it comes to protecting children in our city. Once again, we are the legislative body. When Councilman Adams said this is where we need to do something, he's absolutely right. This is in front of us today as the governing body. It's in front of Councilman Adams, Councilman Bishop, Councilman Malat, Councilman Shriver, and Councilman Scott. It is up to you guys whether we pass this and we allow exemptions for people showing sexual intercourse and sodomy and masturbation and sadomasochistic abuse to our children or not. It's up to us. And so sometimes it takes the courage to do something that needs to be done to protect those in our community. And I'm asking you, men and women of this governing body, to have the courage to do what's right and to protect the children of Edwardsville. And we've asked the attorney. She said we are absolutely within our legal rights to do it. I've talked to attorneys, which I know they're not standing in front of us today. They said we are absolutely within our legal authority to make this more restrictive from home rule. And so I do have a motion on the floor. If anyone would like to second it, we could move forward.
With that being said, there's no doubt that every one of us in this room feel the same way. And anything that we can do to make it stricter, harder for people that do this, that's what I'm about. And so a motion's been made. I would like to second the motion of option 3 of Mayor Cahart.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
No, because I'm concerned about the unintended consequences that could come with prosecuting criminals in the future.
Bishop,
Yes.
Malat.
I'm going to say no, and because I haven't had time to review the 3 options that were presented before us.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
So I want to make sure, so we have adopted the ordinance with those amendments, and we will revise the ordinance accordingly before the mayor's signature, just so everybody's right, because we have to codify that into that ordinance that you have in your packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to item number 4, hear the presentation from BHC regarding 2022 sanitary sewer and inventory inspection project.
While we do have Randy Gordon with us tonight, who serves as city engineer with BHC Roads. I think I had told you all in the past, you all had awarded a contract with BHC Roads to do sewer mapping for us. It actually is a requirement when you own a utility system to have accurate sewer mapping, so that if somebody needs to dig, you can locate your dig. So we have one kind of a legal requirement to have such a system. The second part of it is it's what allows us collectively to then start making decisions on our sewer system, which obviously are very capital intensive, can be very expensive if we don't maintain things or can't find things or have leaks or those types of things. So what we ask BHC to do, I keep wanting to say BHC Roads, I'm not sure how to get that out. It's just BHC now. Though Murray Roads is still around, if you want to go talk to him, I'm sure he'll have coffee with you, or maybe a game of golf more likely. But was to identify our manholes. So literally go out, where the manholes, not just a dot on a map, which is the way we had it before, but a specific location, what type of manhole it is. Believe it or not, people still build manholes using bricks. That's not totally outdated. It's rare, but they're still there. We have some in our city that have been put in probably in the last 20, 30 years, and help us make sure we know where the lines are, the condition of those manholes, et cetera, and so forth. So they have been out doing the hard work, which is the data gathering piece of it. And now they get to show us kind of more of the pretty picture part of it, though I know Randy will happy to answer any of your detailed questions. And then we are incorporating this into the city's GIS system, so we can take all of this information that's been gathered and prepare our plans or look at a particular manhole. Somebody, as you know, here a few months back, we had a manhole that, we had had a blockage in, and now that we see the pictures of it, well, we understand why we had problems. And so this hopefully will be a preventative tool, just like we do with our roads and some of the other ones. So that, Randy, I think I've given as much intro as I can. Turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I'm Randy Gorton with BHC, Brungert Hanemeifel and Company. A couple of you, I welcome you to council because I don't think I've made a presentation since you've taken your current positions. As Mike said, the city asked our firm to go out and for this one, it was involving physically visiting each manhole, taking a GPS coordinate. So in 10 years in a heavy snowstorm, you need to know where the manhole is. We can get you right back to that, even if it's buried under snow or dirt or something else. So we also took an elevation on the top, which lets us then measure down to elevation at the bottom. Your sewer system's all based on gravity, right? Things flowing downhill. So the system works when everything heads in the right direction. And this lets us measure the relative elevation from manhole to manhole, which is great just to validate right how the system performs. It's also very good if somebody wants to add and tie new pipe into the system. And we have a tool that you can decide whether it seems like that manhole is suitable for development to come from a particular direction without them necessarily going through all the steps of survey and design first. So it's very good from a system planning. Later on, if you build your own dynamic system model, computer model, this is the kind of information that makes that model work. So to start out a little bit, originally what we started with was a map that first came from the unified government that they had put together. You used it in your comprehensive plan in 2016. That was the basis. We went with staff and James went through that and he had some markups, things he thought was different. So that's where we started and we went out in the field to validate, was that map right? So originally that map showed 345 manholes in the city. What we found is there's actually 251 that are the cities. There were some inaccuracies. There's some manholes that weren't there anymore. There was also a lot of manholes that were actually private structures. So whether it's in the mobile home community, whether it's in front of a warehouse, right, an industrial complex, and that was their manhole, not the city's. This is all about trying to characterize the city's assets and your responsibilities. So what we came up with is 251 of those. So on the one hand, that's good in that there's less you are obligated to maintain. Bad if you thought that was yours to serve new development. That may not be yours actually after all. So 95% of the manholes that we've collected all of the information we need. And Zach, if you'll scroll down a little bit more. Yeah, this is a good one. So 251, we went out and collected all the information. There's 264 that we actually went out and collected information. However, I think we later found 13 of those actually weren't yours. So I had to reclassify them. And then there were 11 that were inaccessible. So just what that means is, for instance, one's parked under a trailer out at Old Dominion and they won't move the trailer so we can get to the manhole. A few of them have lids that are broken and we're afraid if we get in there and start pulling the pieces out, they'll fall down into it, which would be bad for your system if you don't like clogs, because half a manhole cover can do a great job of blocking the flow in one of these manholes. So we've categorized those. Zach, if you would go down. So now, this is great. Leave it right there, Zach. All the manholes that we've physically verified their location, we can go back and find them day or night using GPS equipment. We know how deep they are. We know what's coming in and what's going out. In your system of 251 verified city-owned manholes, we found 5 that met a condition rating of 5. And the higher the number means it's worse. And 5 is typically considered failing in some way. There's some, they may have a crack in it, right? The the manhole at the top, the ring's cracked so water can flow in off the surface. There's different things that can cause it to be considered as in a failure mode. 1 is brand new, 5 is failing. It needs some form of immediate assistance. So you have 5 out of 251. So 2% of your system is a 5. That's pretty good. I mean, especially given kind of the uneven history of the city staff maintaining versus unified government staff maintaining, and then probably for a while nobody maintaining. A 2%, that's actually a lower number than we expected. Zach, would you hit one button over to at the bottom? Yeah. So this is a 4, which is poor but not failure mode. On that, I believe we had 22 out of 251. So combined, you have 27 manholes out of 251 that are in poor or failing condition. And so those are the ones that typically we look at as some very near-term action, right? Whether it's repair or replacement for a manhole. So basically 10% of the system of what we've found as city-owned manholes are, I think, immediate items to come up with a plan of attack to make them better. And again, based on my comments about kind of the level of maintenance and an active program or lack of an active program, again, this was actually lower than we expected to find, so, and that's a good thing. So we were very pleased to be able to share that information with you. Zach, if you go all the way to the dot on the left, and there is all of the manholes all together. And again, color coded. Green is nearly new or new, so they're in excellent condition. They should not create a problem for you in the foreseeable future. Blue are in good shape, and again, those are of little current concern. And once you get yellow, orange, red, right? Red are the 5 that are in very what we consider failure mode as you go through there. So this is all GIS systems. So the city already has the software that lets you in, but really what it means is we can have information and we can tag it to a specific point in space. Zach, if you don't mind, any one of those dots on the map, if you wouldn't mind, if it'll let you click on it. All right, if you scroll up to there we go. So just again, to understand the information that the city now has, for each one of those structures, there's quite a bit of different types of information that we collected and assigned to each individual, each one of the 251 manholes. So the date we visited and did our inspection, what type of manhole, what's the size of how wide, and diameter matters more than you think because it really controls how big a pipe you can run into it. There's on that one a field rating of 2, so that's how condition of it. So 2 is good. And then, yeah, for there. So which direction is the flow headed which direction does it leave the pipe, right? That's the downhill side. So on this one, it flows out the west opening. We also have elevation information about what's the top elevation and then how deep is it, so we get a sense of the system flowing from point to point. And then at the bottom, what we also included are different photos from the outside, right? Where is it in the neighborhood along the street, as well as on the inside. And then we attach a video that was from the bottom of the pipe coming up so we can look at the sides and document the general condition.
Go back just a little bit. So that's a brick manhole. And like I said,
Yeah.
You might think those are old. But this is a fairly typical structure in sewer systems and not unique to us. I mean, you would not think brick, and personally, I wouldn't think brick either. But there's things we can do. So, for example, a lot of places now will line that manhole. So there's materials that you can put in there. It's basically heated and it sticks to the brick. But the brick itself, the structure's there, right? It's not missing pieces. There's not gaping holes in it, things of that nature. That's what we look for. I know we have a few that if we showed you pictures of them, I mean, you would see the brick is deteriorated, right? Because sewer is a corrosive it's corrosive. It has corrosive gases, it has corrosive, just the materials of it. And so what do you do to try to prevent corrosive? Obviously brick, like any brick that you might have at your house, you put a corrosive gas to it day in and day out all the time. It will deteriorate over some period of time. I don't know what brick manholes life expectancies are. I would expect not more than 50 years, maybe less than that typically, probably.
You find a
30s.
lot. The irony is if you find a brick manhole in most locations in the Midwest, it's already 75 to 100 years old. Just because we switched to making them out of concrete in the 50s. So we're getting into the 70 years sort of, just do the math. 70 years ago, they started making concrete manholes because you install them way faster than stacking brick up ring by ring, course by course. That was a lot of work in the day.
Most of our system is probably, a good portion of it was constructed in the 70s and 80s, just by right, we know development patterns, things of that nature.
So just a curious question, what would the average age of our manholes be? Did you calculate that by any chance?
So the information we have did not have the year of installation. And you also get in a situation where some of them, there may have originally been a manhole built in 1938. Doesn't mean it wasn't replaced in 1974. The city does not have those records. Those were not available to us. So I can't tell you.
That was more for my curiosity than anything.
Well, if you think about the pattern of the city, right? I mean, the mobile home. So this area right here, where the 3 nursing homes are, right? The mobile home park, this area here, some of the housing that was, basically the Blake Street to the south, that housing, right? That was all done as part of that, that 70s development of this area. So we can probably assume a lot of that was put in the 70s. A lot of what's in the old town actually is newer.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have sewer and went back and actually added sewer. So those homes, the sewer may be newer because we put it in at a later date. Or if we take, obviously we know Williamson Farm neighborhood, right? That one we can age pretty well because we know when the plans were submitted for the various phases. So we have better data. It's really some of this old system from when we used to have a lagoon, and I, probably using language, but right, there basically was a lagoon down at the end of 4th Street, basically, which means it was nothing but a big stock tank that everything went to and set in it until eventually it flew out and went to the river, right? And I mean, we were not alone. There's still lagoons today out there. But I mean, that was not an uncommon. But mainly that was built around the mobile home park, right? I mean, that's really where its history comes from.
So does this, Zach, and I don't know if you want to go back on those photographs, but does this also show the size of that pipe? I mean, we can see it there, but does it have the dimensions of the pipe itself?
It does. Pipe? Yeah. It's got the different sizes of the pipe coming in and out of those structures. Because again, that's very important long term for the system. Now, the other thing that we assume now that the city has this data set available to them moving forward, anytime the city rehabs a manhole, there you go. Yes, because for instance, this has 2 different size pipes coming in and out. And we also have on ours the pipe 1, 2, and 3 all comes back to the direction where the openings are in the structure. So I think on this one, the east-west line is 12-inch, and the line that comes in from the south flows north into it is the 8-inch. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. So, because typically it's looking up, we figure out what's upstream, downstream. Upstream is 1, and then we go clockwise from there.
And sometimes those pipes, you kind of see it back. It may actually be a service line that was put into a manhole. Typically, we defer not to do that, but for reasons. But sometimes that's where the service line was brought into a manhole. not the
It's
preferred.
definitely great information to have. And so is this web-based, this information, or is it
So
a program?
we're looking at this on the internet right now.
So it's in the cloud then?
The web version of the
Okay,
mapping.
so our police officers and fire can get access to this in case of an emergency, or you said we have some failing manhole covers, and heaven forbid somebody falls in one. I want to know, they want to know, I would think, is what they're dealing with, sizes and
Yeah.
where it's going.
And I think part of it is with James, right, who's kind of overseeing your sewer. We identified those locations, so I think it's probably a matter of ordering the manholes and getting them swapped out.
Right.
Again, without dropping the pieces down in the
Yeah.
hole. That's up to you how you want to use the data. We have the data for you. You own the data. We can either continue to host and give you access through this particular way, or you take it over on your own and you run it on your machines, or you do it on your own web-based version of the data set. That is your choice, how you want to handle it.
That's probably still in discussion.
I'm with
I mean,
you.
like, you can post this up on Google Earth, right?
Yeah.
So we have things on Google Earth right now that, I can go look at, like our road rating system, just overlaid onto Google Earth.
All the storm inlets.
Storms the same way. So I could pull up Google Earth to pull that data.
And that's part of what we assumed you would want as part of this. We put it in the task order. The assumption is over time, your question about age, right? Over time, whenever the city does maintenance on a manhole in the future, we assume you'll fill in that information and update the record. So
James can update this accordingly? Or
He
whoever?
and or Bradley, yeah. So, I mean,
Okay.
100 years from now, you should have great history, right, of every man.
Yeah.
I mean, the typical lifespan on a manhole is 75 to 100 years, depending on lots of factors. But we generally assume the system, when you install it, this ought to give you 75 to 100 years of average life. So, we'll see. And the overall age of your system, if it was built, most of it in the 50s to 70s, okay, you're halfway to 3/4 of the way through what we normally would have expected it to last for. And the numbers, in general, don't disagree with that assumption. So let's see. So Zach, if you'll scroll down one more. So yeah, we have this video information for every structure. You can play the video if you'd like. Yeah, it'll take a while.
Yeah.
And then this is just a recap. And as you change, right, ratings on you replace the 5s and make them 1s because they're new. The graph, at least our dashboard, the way we've set it up, it'll update and start taking off the 5s. This is probably a fine place to stop. Some takeaways for the city, right? This is a great edition 1 on a system to proactively manage the system. It only works if you periodically update the record and see what's changed. So again, it ideally no more than 5 years apart between inspections. Generally on sewer system, 5 years. And if you've got 5s, you may want to keep an eye on them a little more. And that can be as simple as one of your staff members popping the lid, shining a powerful spotlight just to look down inside, make sure, right, you don't have a wall caving in, something like, make sure the flow is proceeding the way you want. And then beyond that, it's up to your staff. How much you update the records and keep the database up to date, the more valuable and useful it is to you for planning and maintenance purposes along the way.
What's the general cost of replacing a manhole?
I think your system's 12 foot, so you're probably talking somewhere around $15,000, $20,000, depending on what you have to tear up to get in there, pull the old one and put a new one back. You can also, Mike mentioned, some of these that are in poor shape and it hasn't collapsed yet, we can go and apply a spray liner on the inside, and it's made so that the liner has its own structural capacity. It doesn't rely on whatever's left. It doesn't double the life, but it probably gives you at least a 40 or 50% extension of not having to tear things up and totally replace it. City of Kansas City has obviously orders of magnitude more manholes. They have more manholes than anybody else in the metro. They use that technology. It justifies the cost for what they extend the system versus just outright demo and put totally new back in. Again, it'll depend. If it's right in the middle of a neighborhood, that would be the first choice. If it's at the end of a street in the industrial park and it's only 8 feet deep, now, you know what? That may be the right one to just dig up, put a brand new one in, right? You're not really disturbing anybody, and so the cost is lower.
One of the things that, I mean, this is really, you think about it, so you got the manholes. We have the manhole data now, right? And we know what size the lines are. But the other piece of the equation is what's between them, right? And that's where using TV technology, you can do smoke test technology, right? Have people connected to the system properly, like ran all their downspouts from their house and put it into the sewer system, right? You don't want storm water in the sewer because of the cost, right? Has a cable company or some other provider drilled a hole through your pipe with their cable? I can absolutely 100% guarantee you right now, yes, because I've seen it so many times. And nobody knows, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that they intentionally did it, but they drilled through it or through the top of it, right? And then it starts deteriorating and breaking up. And so what this though does is, if I know I've got a cluster of bad manholes and it's expensive, right? Just what I may want to do in that cluster area is I may want to also look at all the pipes and connections and things like that, and then decide, okay, is this we got 2 manholes to replace, or we're going to replace 10 manholes and 1,000 feet of sewer pipe, right? I mean, but we didn't have, to just go to a contractor and say, we want you to TV our system. Well, from where to where? Are your manholes named? I mean, is there any numbering system? Is there any, which way does it flow? I mean, our old sewer map showed flows going a direction that I knew it didn't go, right? I mean, it was going the wrong way, or showed things in our sewer, part of our sewer system, like grinder pumps from buildings. Those are not ours, right? But that system showed all these grinder pumps. They're not ours. So it's really a foundational piece than a final piece. Now we can go out, again, if we want to look at 20%, a 5-year plan, and you say, okay, we're going to TV 20% of all our lines every year. Okay, what's that cost, and how do you want to, you don't want to do a few over here, a few feet over here. You want to say, okay, we're going to go into Williamson Farm. I know I keep using that one because it's city, and we're going to go in there and we're going to check every manhole, and we're going to TV that whole system. And at the end of that, then we can say, everything in there is pretty good. It needed a good way to go, or it was good until we got to the bottom of it, and then that last manhole was just wreck, and then we say, well, let's go a little bit farther south and see what we got. So it just technology is so much advanced for this stuff. But I think, to Mr. Scott's comments a number of times, right? I mean, we can't maintain and fix what we don't know, and it's certainly cheaper. It's a lot cheaper when it's at this level than in the future. Just like with roads. I mean, it's better to spend money on a road that's at a 5, 6, or 7 rating, even though people go, well, that's not the worst road. But it's cheaper to maintain it, because when it's a 1 or 2, your only option is to dig it up and start over. And that gets expensive.
And what choice have we made as far as where we're storing the data?
Well, we have the data. We have a GIS now, so we can. So it's I'm not the data file guy, but you know how. I mean, so they provide to us a data files, and then it can be put with any number of mechanisms. The way the GIS, though, it allows us to update that directly right here, right? So we worked on a manhole today. Those notes could be added to it, and I'm not the expert, but you can have multiple people doing that, right? I mean, they may not have access to everything. They're just the sewer, right? So James, our public works director, could go in and say, I've got these work orders today. We're going to add that information in at manhole number 147. There was a blockage. Maybe something as simple as that. Unless you know better the detail piece, but
right. You're fundamentally, you can take care of the data hosted. It's under your account through this same software vendor, creator that we use the same software you guys do. And right now, we gave Bradley access through his city user account to our web map online, because we can, right, it's all the same company. Long term, if you want to maintain it, your staff takes care of it. Here you go. Here's the data. If you want us to do it and you provide updates, again, that's how you want your staff to best utilize their time. Totally up to you.
We also working with the county, right, through their mapping system, right? Because they're public. The data sets can be public or private, right? I mean, some things you don't want to have out there in your utility systems for security bases, right? But even in that, we can share between us and the county, so the county can. I mean, there's times when that's good for them to have, right? Because their water crews are going to go out and dig something up at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's a water break, right? And having access to knowing what's around is valuable, because then they don't necessarily dig up our sewer line. Yeah, they're going to fix it, but in the meantime, what do you do? Right. So there's value in this data sharing now.
So Mike hit the other thing going forward, right? The manholes, the nodes, the junctions between all these pipes, we haven't looked at the pipes. Our company does not have the equipment to go look at all these pipes that small. Storm pipes, great. They're all bigger and shorter. These, you need the little robot cameras that'll roll their way down the pipe and can see every foot and look for failure. So there's plenty of vendors out there. I know the city's already been using 1 or 2 of them. We use some of them, to be honest, ourselves when we need them on our projects. But that's the next thing. Identify every year, right? How many feet of your total system can you, fit in the budget you want to spend? But that, again, eventually over time, you'll have a running assessment of the condition of your entire system with periodic updates, and that'll be great. You guys will be able to start budgeting and programming money, not emergency response to failure type situations, which is ideally, right, should be the most cost-effective way to take care of your assets. Beyond that, there are a couple of kind of preferential things we'll follow up with city staff. And there are 2 of the lift stations that when our surveyors took a shot, they didn't measure the thing we measured depth off of. They gave us right next to it. So we can find it in the snowstorm, but I can't tell you exactly how deep it is there compared to the one that's 1,000 feet down the street. We will follow up with that now that our surveyors understand, okay, take your shot here. We have the force mains in that have been provided, whether we had that information already, the city got it from somebody else. Other than Mission Creek and Conoco, no one has provided that information. So your system, the location for where the pump station is pumping the water into is still a little vague. And so at some point, however it's decided, that information can be added to the maps. Want to do that. It's not the easiest thing in the world to go nail down.
The manholes that you said were not ours, are they all private?
Yeah, they are either that individual property owner or the mobile home community.
Okay.
Parts that are theirs, the city never accepted as a public improvement.
The part of the mobile home park that we take as public is there's basically a line that goes from north to south. And that's because the flow coming down 4th Street heads to the west. And then it heads south, which is kind of where, see that main line, which if you look at the bottom, that's where the old sewer plant was, or the lagoon system is. And so all of that, we take anything internal to them is a private line, just like anybody else would do, right? And believe me, there's a lot of those manholes and stuff down there that are, right, then none of that's platted. It's just big lots. They're under mobile homes, and who knows some of them where they're at. So, we care about making sure that the sewer flows to the wastewater plant.
Well, we aren't responsible for those.
We are not.
Just the ones on that one line.
Those are not, again, those aren't public streets. I mean, that's a private community, right, in that sense. So, the only other thing I'd add, just a final note, is I believe and there's a few little cleanup things, but they will have been under budget on this project. So we
charged you based on manholes that we expected, and you had fewer than everybody thought. So,
That's a positive.
all right, well, we get less money,
Yeah.
but that's the deal. It's okay. If there had been more, we would have charged you for more. So that's just the break sometimes. Yeah, at this point, other than the little bit of information on the manhole or the lift stations, the only thing we have left to do is go ahead and deliver to staff the final USB drive of data, and then we'll create map books, which are your crews. It'll be nice. They could throw it in the pickup, a paper copy of the maps later on in the field. They don't need internet access at the time, or if they want to make notes. So we'll provide that to staff. And if you want the Google Earth version of this, you just got to tell us. That's what we did the last couple times. So I like that because I don't need an internet connection. I can load on my laptop and have it wherever I'm at. So pretty handy for quick reference. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming. Item number 5, selection of Gordon CPA to serve as the city's auditor for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
I believe Zach is going to cover this particular item, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are.
Yeah, well, if it's all right, we're probably going to go ahead and cover item 5 and number 6 at the same time. Item 5 is selection of Gordon CPA to serve as the city's auditor for the fiscal year ending December 31st of this year. And then item 6 is resolution 2022-13 regarding the gap waiver. So the gap waiver is pretty standard for most Kansas cities who use cash basis law. It allows us to conduct the audit using the standards of budgeting and accounting that we typically do. That's a pretty standard item that we include every year around this time. Item 5, selection of Gordon CPA. We initially contracted out with Gordon CPA in 2019, and they completed the audits for 2019, 2020, and 2021. The original agreement at that time was for a 3-year engagement with the additional option for 2 additional years. Our auditor previous to Gordon CPA, Wendling, No, and Nelson, we had them for 5 years. I think the intention at this point is to stick with Gordon unless there's some direction from the council to go a different direction, or staff internally sees some reason to change course. But our recommendation at this point is both to move forward with Gordon CPA as the city's auditor for fiscal year 2022 and to adopt resolution 2022-13 regarding the gap waiver. We would need 2 separate motions for both of those items.
I would just note that, I mean, I think Gordon has done an excellent job for us for the last 3 years. If you recall, 3 years ago, I think we had 5 firms respond.
I believe that's right, 5 or 6.
I think from a pricing, they were they were low. Our former auditors, several firms got out of the municipal auditing business. They just stopped doing municipal audit. I don't know why, just a lot of them at the same time kind of did that. Gordon CPA was a relatively new, as a firm, it was a startup, but the people there had come from some of the other firms and formed a new firm. So they certainly have the experience. They've worked well with us. This year will be a little challenging in the sense that we're going through the, restructure with the finance director position, and just in reality, having that consistency with the auditor will be very valuable to us. And so I would certainly suggest and support that we retain them for the 2022 year, which would be the 4th year of our engagement with them.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the selection of Gordon CPA to serve as the city's auditor for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
Second.
Motion is second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Shriver?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Mawat?
Yes. Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-13 regarding the gap waiver for the 2022 audit.
Second.
Motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Shriver?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Mawat?
Yes.
Item number 7, consider resolution 2022-14 supporting a grant application for home buyer assistance.
I'll give and I'll do it from here if that's okay. This item before you, as noted, is a grant application through the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation for their 2022 moderate income housing program. Just as some history, as you know, the city has been working with the development team, Highland Drive Development LLC, and specifically with Mr. Ross Vogel, who's here with us in the audience, when we put together the Rural Housing Investment District. He brought that information to us because it was really new. All right, it couldn't have, until this past year, it wasn't even possible to do that in Wyandotte County. And so we went through that program. I think you all are familiar with what we're doing with the RHID, the townhomes, kind of the general program. What this does is it provides, through this program, an opportunity for home buyers to receive a $10,000 home buyer assistance. So they can use this for, paying closing costs, interest buy downs, et cetera, and so forth, related to a purchase. So, it's not a rent subsidy. It's not a low income housing program. It basically helps to promote home ownership, which is what we've been talking about. So that is the program in and of itself. Mr. Vogel can certainly answer details. He provided you some materials that we put in the packet. Again, happy to answer those. We're proposing to submit this. It is due the end of this week. The state changed kind of the amount of money and some of just the details late in August, and so everybody's playing catch up on this. It's a very competitive grant, so again, we would move forward with this, and again, answer any questions about the program. I don't know, Mr. Vogel, if you wish to come speak and make any comments and just represent yourself briefly. So I think you all have met Mr. Vogel in the past. So.
Great, Mayor, Council people, thank you. Our commissioners, thank you. Yeah, this is just another example of the state of Kansas expanding programs that were already in place to have a wider breadth to affect the state's housing. And Rural Housing Incentive District wasn't eligible here until very recently. This is another program where this program has been $2 million a year for the whole state for the last 10 years. And now they're expanding that to about $20 million a year for the next 3 years. And certainly when we were working on the grant, working on the information for the grant, I think we put together a good grant because you all look a lot like some other communities that have the same housing issues, even though you're close to a more rural or more urban area, and pointed that out. That's kind of what we put the thrust of our case behind.
And this just applies to this Highland Drive townhomes.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
So when this did come up, I did ask Mike about this particular item because it was a concern within the community, having townhomes and making sure it's not a low income housing and that sort of thing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mike said no, this isn't that sort of project. It is just down payment assistance. And so I was on a typical home buyer at $250,000. The lowest they can come in with right now is about $7,500. And these homes that are proposed are even on the upper end of that, between $250,000 and $300,000, I believe is what presented for each townhome. And so what this helps is buyers that are coming into this market that, it's tough for new home buyers right now. When you're first time home buyer, you don't have a house to sell. And just to get a starter home, you're looking at $200,000. And so I think this just kind of promotes, like Mike said, home ownership in our community and giving folks the American dream, really, and the ability to own a home and not be renting for the the rest of their lives. Kind of gets them out on the right foot. But I did appreciate you clarifying that it's not for rentals, and it's
Right.
not for the builder to pocket. It's
Right.
specifically to be used for that down payment assistance.
And I would note that in this particular case, while this program has components of it where they can be used for buying down the cost of a home, right, to the developer side, the developer was adamant in this case that it be used in this way for the first time home. I mean, he too, I say he, it's a team, but Dustin Baker, who's been before you as part of the development team, really strongly was in support of using it in this mechanism than in some other approved, that could be approved. Our particular resolution, everything limits it to this use, just for clarity.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we adopt resolution 2022-14, a resolution of the city of Edwardsville, Kansas, authorizing the preparation and submittal of an application to the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation for the 2022 Kansas Moderate Income Housing Grant Program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Shriver?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Mowat?
Yes.
All right, on to item number 8, city manager report. Mike, did you have anything in addition?
Just a couple, just really quick things at our planning commission, and we'll be before you all soon too. Excuse me. We presented what's known, or the UG presented what's known as the GODOT Strategic Mobility Plan. It's a countywide plan that the city participated in, as well as Bonner Springs and even Lake Corvera, because there's a small portion there. We will have them before you at some time in the near future, just to give you the overview of the plan. But Mr. Hand and his group there has done a really good job of making this a countywide plan. I expect ultimately the Planning Commission will adopt it as part of our broader comprehensive plan, very similar to what we've done with the 2 PSP applications for K32 and for the 4th Street. So it gives them some additional design and items. So when somebody comes in and says, I just want to do this, they can reference these other plans as well. And in this case, it's about mobility, complete streets, quite a bit around K32, information about the microtransit system. So, I mean, they've really incorporated all of the cities in this particular plan. It is the first, quite honestly, Wyandotte County-wide strategic plan that was done. Now, of course, it was done around mobility with the specifics, but I don't know if there's really a other plan out there that's broad-based. And then the other thing, we did have and will be hopefully completing interviews of candidates for our Public Works Director position, and I am certainly hope to have that decision done in the very, 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 very near future. We went back out. We did a little bit different strategy for recruiting, and I think it helped. And I think we have some good candidates to look at. So I'll be hopefully being able by your next meeting to give you the person and be able to publicly announce new Public Works Director for us.
Very good. Thank you.
Otherwise, unless there's questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay, Zach, did you have anything? Ms. Dehan? Captain Short? Chief Whittam?
You see what happens when I don't go to Auto Fest? It doesn't rain. It's not weather, so.
Just a hair. Just a hair.
Councilman Scott?
I just want to, thank the public for their comments. And for me, it was just, I guess I was surprised that our current laws that we have on the UPOC wasn't already protecting our students and our children and the teachers for that matter. But I really appreciate, our community, their comments. And again, I believe we all feel the same way. That's a horrible situation. And I want to applaud our mayor, for really doing the extra work and doing her due diligence on this and just bringing it to everybody's attention. And I appreciate our attorney's information as well, as it's difficult sometimes to make these decisions. The one thing I would like to add, Mayor, is in the future, if you have, I'd rather make sure we have those options in front of us, just written out, so that way it's really black and white for us, especially us old timers, or this old timer. I would appreciate having that written in front of me.
I will take responsibility. We should have included, the mayor had distributed that before. We should have included that in the package.
Well, shame on you.
So shame on me.
But thank you. I appreciate that. And appreciate BHC for their hard work on the sanitary sewer and inventory information. That's very helpful and very much needed for our city. So now we know where we need to grow and what we need to address when our 5 manhole covers that aren't looking so good. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Councilman Adams?
Where the canine competition that's coming up for Bear?
Yes.
On the 8th, where is the Shawnee Mission softball complex?
Midland, it's on Midland Drive, I believe. I thought it was.
No, it's on Johnson Drive.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
that the one down at the
Drive.
bottom of the hill then?
Yes.
By the tracks?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes,
and so,
Johnson Drive in Woodland,
okay,
just to the east of that intersection. It's in the open field house.
okay. What are the times, do you know what? If you could,
We'll get that, because they're doing the thing, and I think it's on Saturday, there's a public component there. We'll get that. We'll make
that'd
sure
be
to
really
get that
cool to
out to
watch.
everybody and get that posted.
yeah, that'd be great, go Bear.
Yes.
Couple things is, I think we all are on the same page, and as a grandparent, my daughter is dealing with this with 5 boys, but I admire her because as a parent, she's attacking it at the level it needs to be attacked. And with the teachers and the school board and those policies and so forth, I think that's the real crux of things. I hope this works. I am concerned about the unintended consequences. When you start messing with laws that have been on the books since 1988, this law has been here a long, long time. And so I'm very concerned about that. I hope it accomplishes what you want it to accomplish. I'm very doubtful. Hopefully we never get tested. Hopefully it never comes up and doesn't interrupt with recruiting at the grade school or anything like that. So I think we're all on the same page there, other than I think I just expressed my concern. That's all I have.
Councilman Bishop?
Yes, I don't know if everybody knows this. I brought it to Mike's attention, but Bonner Springs Police Department ticketed our fire truck at Purse Chopper. I called the mayor about that. Then they posted on Facebook, and then their chief made fun of it. Thought it was a big joke. I, being a retired battalion chief, that's not a joke. It's one thing if you're standing around joking with the guys, but they come out and there's a ticket on the fire truck, that ain't cool, man, at all. And I know Mike's been addressing city manager out there, but this kind of stuff happens to our city, not the jokes and stuff, from Bonner all the time. I think we should actually readdress the mutual aid situation out there because we run more calls. Seems like the chief probably has all the data, but it seems like to me, it seems like we run a lot of calls out there and we don't even get a thank you, And what they did to us on 110th Street, I thought that was unacceptable. And what they've done to us a couple other times, I just think we should readdress it and come up with a solution of some sort. That's all I got.
And we had, I think previously, some information for the first 6 months. And we can update that information for you as we get a little bit farther. And we'll certainly address it in, obviously, the annual report. We also have more financial information, right, as far as cost recovery, revenue recovery, right, because we do get some recovery, but we'll provide more information.
They thought it was a joke.
Forward. As Mr. Bishop stated, I did have discussion with the city manager. I will say he also did not find that to be appropriate behavior, and he was going into a meeting, actually just by chance, going into a meeting with his department heads, and called me back that it had definitely been addressed. So it didn't go on deaf ears, but totally understand the concerns. But when Mr. Bishop brought it to me, we also reached out there. So you know the follow up.
Councilman Shriver?
I want to thank Zach and all the city staff. I think there was fire and police and administrative staff for all their work for Autumn Fest. I think it was a great crowd, a little bit hot, a little bit of rain in the morning, just a touch, just a little bit, Chief. But right. I think it was extremely successful. I didn't even see Zach. I know he's busy.
Yeah.
His family comes. He's working 100 miles an hour. So thank you so much. And all the city staff who helped. Are we still going to have a large item pickup November, maybe? I can't remember the date.
Yes, I've actually got a call with Matt Gibson over at Casey's Disposal to set that date, and we will include it in all of our Hot Shot newsletter and all our online outreach, and then we'll also do a special mailing that has got kind of like a paper version of the Hot Shot that's got the date in there. We typically do that first or second week in November. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, some people need a few weeks for that.
Oh yeah.
Preparation.
Yeah, I have a call with him. I want to say actually tomorrow, and then we'll get the date set and we'll start pumping out that information this week.
Okay. One more thing. So I come home 110th every day and actually take our dog to get a bath about once a week. Don't. She's got issues anyway. So the road on 110th right in front of Annie Powell's, has anybody seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
it's very concerning the last few weeks. It's like,
Something has failed there.
Right.
Calls this morning with BPU, with marking utilities. Something has failed.
It's happened quick.
Yeah, it's very quick. So we don't know if it was like a water line and there is a leak, there's no water, or maybe just a backfill problem, or it could just be your traditional sinkhole. That's a 12-inch thick piece of concrete with 2 to 3 inches of asphalt on top of it. They are in sections, but we kind of got noticed late Friday, and we're out there. So the downside is it will, no doubt, it's going to require that lane closure and remove. I mean, it's going to have to get replaced. It's the question of what's caused it and who might be the one replacing it. So
right.
Be on that pretty quickly.
And if you could advertise Bears competition a little bit more. I mean, I know you put it on the Hot Shot and whatnot. I don't know if the grade school flyer go to them. I just think that's neat. Like Councilman Adams said, that's really, really neat for anybody to go see. I think the kids would get a kick out of it too.
Yeah, and this information, the address and the date and all that and the time was included in the Hot Shot, but just for the record here, it's Saturday, October 8th, starting at 10 a.m. It's 6101 Mara Road in Shawnee. So that's
What was the time again?
10 a.m.
I think it goes for a number of hours through the day. Also, if you have any interest in supporting the group, right? So it's the Midwest Canine Officers. I don't know, that's kind of hosting this, so it's agencies from around the Midwest. So I know that they are looking for sponsor help to just defray some of those costs. So if somebody has any interest, you can probably get a hold of me, or I'm sure Captain Short knows how to put them in contact as well. On roads, just since you brought this up, and I meant to say Swartz Road. Nobody's asked. Maybe did I steal your thunder, Mr. Watt? Well, I'll try to answer. So we have we have a pre-construction meeting tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, and they've indicated they want to start construction on Wednesday. I can't tell you where, what side, what end. I know BPU was out tying in water lines. I had one of our candidates with us, and he goes, do they normally put all the dirt in the middle of the street and put up no traffic control? And I said, well, that's a really good question. I appreciate that. So, yes. So hopefully we'll be starting. I just don't know
directions thing, but I'll get that out for everybody once we have more details. They will probably start putting door hangers out though tomorrow that they'll be starting this week.
Refresh me on how long is that project supposed to take?
It'll probably take,
Winter's coming.
no, probably it's probably not more than a 2 to 3 week project. I mean, the unknown parts are always there's a gas line or a water line that you thought is deeper and it's not, and we'll get into that. And then they also will be doing, as approved through the CPPS board in your packet, be doing a mill and overlay of the cemetery. So all the paved areas up there, some of it's got a little rough. And that's pretty much just a straight pavement job. So that's probably a 2 to 3 day job. And we just want to make sure to coordinate that we don't have any, a funeral coming or something of that nature. So we'll coordinate those times as necessary.
Councilman Millett?
Well, you got one of them. I got a few. First of all, I would like to thank the public again for their input tonight. And once again, I want to reiterate that it is not easy decisions that we make up here. And I think you can tell by the way that some of the controversies and so forth. My no vote was not because I am against protecting our kids. I went to Edwardsville Grade School. I went to Unified School District, grade school here, the high school, and all of that. And I have all the faith in the world in our school system and in our district. The superintendent, down to the principals, down to the teaching staff, culinary staff, custodial staff, bus drivers. I have all the confidence in the world in them. I do appreciate the mayor's efforts on trying to exceed these expectations and to protect our kids. I do appreciate that effort. That's where I stand on that. I was a teacher for 37 years, and I understand the risk that you take anytime you're in a classroom with kids. There's anything that can happen to you at any time. And as teachers, I expect that they are going to be professional and very good with these kids. So that's where I stand on that. I am not against what we approved tonight, but I think it might have been overstepping somewhat on the state statutes. So I appreciate that the vote went the way it did, and my vote is what my vote was. Got that. Zach, Autumn Fest, wonderful. He's out of the room. Mike, are you? Okay. I'm going to confess I have a condition with my eye. I've got and I can see over here, but I can't see over here. Anyway, that's business. Any response on the K-32 letter?
I have not seen any. I think those put up their spots tonight.
If they, no, they were not. I will get them.
Okay, I don't know where they're at.
I don't know how we can twist arms and pressure, but I think we should twist arms and pressure one way or the other.
Right.
Because it's ridiculous for that highway to look like that.
And quite honestly, I mean, it hasn't been very long. I mean, quite honestly, a letter to the Secretary of Transportation probably takes several days to get through the office mail system there, I would imagine.
That, but
Right.
It hasn't. It's taken a long time for that.
But we do have copies of the letter for each of y'all.
I saw it.
Okay. In addition, it was sent to.
But I think that should be one of our priorities on infrastructure improvements around here. The other thing I had was manholes. Is there any federal infrastructure money that can go to repairing manholes? They're talking about these billions and trillions of dollars out there. We need our share of that. 32 highway manhole covers and whatever. That's just a suggestion. And the last thing is on the silent crossings. Yeah, I'm going to mention silent crossings, but it's not the lack of the railroad approving them. It's the construction company claiming that they're finished with them, but they didn't sweep them when they were done. And there's sand all over the road down there. And I think that they need to be swept because they look horrible. And I think we've tried to make an improvement to our entrance in the city. I think we tried to make improvements, and I don't think that we got exactly what we needed from them on that. So, and Lisa, I appreciate all of your efforts with the mayor on the ordinance 1059 or whatever it was that we did. Anyway, thank you. That's all I've got.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. Thank you for all the city staff and Zach specifically for Autumn Fest, all the work that went into it. We were also at the Fastenal 5K, and that went really well. There was good participation, and hopefully we can relay a thank you to Fastenal for being a great partner in our community, as well as all of the business sponsors and folks who showed up for the Autumn Fest. That was a great turnout. Garrett, part of your point earlier in infrastructure and money coming in, wanted to follow up with everybody. Representative Pam Curtis followed up with me and gave me some contacts specifically for money coming in, federal money coming into the state level for infrastructure and broadband. I talked to her about the K32 plan that Wyandotte County already has. She said that's a slam dunk because the plans are already in place and they're ready to go. And so she's got me some emails, and I'm going to get those to you, Mike, and we can reach out to them. But hopefully, while this money's here, we can take advantage of it. May as well. It's helping everybody else.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I wanted to bring just a quick clarification on last meeting. There were a couple of slides that came up that said Mayor Kahar on them, and I did specifically ask for options regarding that mill reduction on the general fund and keeping the debt service at 11, since that's what our financial advisor suggested. But I did not say cut police, cut parks. That was suggestions brought in to make those mill levies happen. And so just wanted to clarify, I said, hey, I would like to see these options, but I didn't come up with the solutions given on the slides. Just to make sure everybody understands that. I think there's a little bit of confusion. I wanted to, again, thank the council for the vote tonight. I know sometimes it is hard to stand apart, and it is hard to make some of the decisions that we make up here. But ultimately, standing up to protect our kids will always be the right thing to do. And if that means some people don't want to come work at our school, then I would say probably those aren't the candidates that we would want. Thank you so much again. We'll see y'all in October.
Oh, man.